Hello everybody, Joshua back here again with another video, and I'm here to give you my personal thoughts on DC and CW officially releasing the first ever images of Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Yes, as we all know, Kendra Saunders and Carter Hall have been casted in the Arrow/Flash universe to appear, of course, as apparent, main to supporting characters on the DC's Legends of Tomorrow, which is going to be a team-up universe DC program that will be premiering sometime in January, if I'm not mistaken. And CW and DC officially released the first ever images of them in their actual costumes, and it looks pretty badass. It's pretty much the greatest Wolverine costume we're never gonna get, which is kind of sad when you think about it, but whatever. Hugh Jackman kills it anyways. He doesn't need... That's how badass Hugh Jackman is as an actor. He doesn't need a mask in a superhero franchise. Yeah, he doesn't. When you think about it, he really doesn't. But anyways, enough of that. The costume itself are pretty badass. It's pretty much what I expect from the CW to come out with, because of course the costumes of the CW universe, specifically for their DC universes, aren't as extravagant or epic as you would get with the movies, whether it be with Marvel movies or with the DC movies, which I personally love. But for me personally, I think they did a great job at trying to get the overall essence of what these characters are. Of course, for those of you who don't know anything about Hawkman and Hawkgirl, essentially they're both super-powered aliens that derive their power from the ancient Egyptian hawk gods. And of course, their basic story point is to die and of course reincarnate all throughout time as these winged helmeted warriors from another planet, Thanagar. And of course they have to find each other, reconcile their love for each other, and then, go on doing whatever the hell they want within the DC universe, whether that's fucking saving people, going to space, or joining the Justice League. It doesn't matter. They're doing one or the other. And of course, they have Sierra Renee, who is playing Hawkgirl. We already known this for a long time. She was in an episode of Flash, and she's obviously was in the first look trailer of Legends of Tomorrow. And then they casted Folk Henschel as Hawkman, Carter Hall, and now we got costumes of... Now we got an image of their costumes, and I'm here to give you my personal thoughts, breakdown if you will, review if you will. First off, the costumes themselves seems pretty realistic of what I would expect from the costume designer of Arrow and the Flash to come up with. It looks very Flash-esque in the material and they used, specifically in the design. If there was anything that comes out to mind as, this is awesome, it has to be the cows that they have. Granted, it would have been cooler if they were actual helmets instead of, these masks that they're wearing. But regardless, we don't know how these two characters will fit into this universe, so I have to wait and see how they act and perform as a duo in comparison to just looking at them. But overall, if I look at the image itself, it looks pretty awesome, it looks pretty cool from afar, but when you get right into it, it's very bronzy, it's very lack of color, which is kind of weird. Granted, Hawkman and Hawkgirl don't have the most richest of colors in the comic books, depending on your, subjective opinion, but it's kind of weird, they gave them both the same exact color, which is this brownish kind of bronze, I guess because they wanted to go for a more, hawk kind of realism, if that makes any sense, which probably doesn't, but I'm gonna go with that. Also, Hawkman is holding a fucking mallet, pretty badass. I mean, granted, the Hawk characters are usually, always with that kind of specific weapon. They usually use medieval weapons, so it makes sense for him to use that. I just think it's kind of weird how small it is. It would have been cooler if it was bigger, and also more chromed out and silverous. But I guess silver-esque. But I guess they don't want to copy Thor, seeing as how Thor is the big thing with the only superhero character that's allowed to use a weapon nowadays. I don't know. But overall, it's really cool to have that. And also, I find it kind of weird that we don't see their wings. I guess that's the weird thing. is this just an image for fans, or is this like an image from the actual show? That's kind of a weird. That's something I wanted. I mean, granted, it's probably a promotional image. I mean, they're looking right at the freaking camera, but where are their wings? That's what I want to know. Like, are they retractable, or is this like a post-production kind of thing where they're just going to go full-on CGI wings, which I think is more or less what they're going to do anyways. But they're not just going to have wings just like walking around. They just don't. I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see, because you can't trust the test footage. I mean, like the first look trailer in Legends of Tomorrow, you can't trust that because it is what it is. It's test footage. They didn't really have perfected what Hawkgirl and or Hawkman, which we didn't know he was gonna be a part of this at that point, but Hawkgirl was gonna be or look like. So that you can't take into consideration, but this you can. And overall, after breaking it down, I think it looks pretty awesome. Hawkgirl, I wish her costume was a little bit, I don't know, like a little bit more comic booky. It looks very much like a nightclubby kind of costume, with the exception of like her shoulder pads. And then you got the helmets, which I wish were a tad more actually helmets. Like, I wish there were, and also I wish there was a little bit more of a chromed out look. And for Hawkman, pretty much the same thing goes. He looks pretty much like Carter Hall, with the exception of, you know, his color. I wish his weapon was a tad bigger, a tad more like intimidating. And of course, where are their wings? That's kind of like the big thing. But also, when you kind of go into further detail, you kind of see the Hawkman symbol on his chest there, which is pretty cool. But with all that aside, overall, Carter Hall and Kendra Saunders are officially here. We officially get to see them, and it looks pretty badass. It's cool. It's just cool to see more DC characters join the fold in the CW universe, because, I mean, like, as much as CW would give their left nut to fucking have Batman, that's never going to happen. So I guess Hawkman and Hawkgirl are going to be the next best thing. But overall, this is a pretty awesome image. I like the costumes. I'm not in love with them. I have to see them perform as these characters, which will be actually soon. Hawkman and Hawkgirl will make their debuts in the Arrow and Flash crossover episodes, and then after that, they will be premiering with DC's Legends of Tomorrow whenever that premieres, which will be probably next year. But overall, really awesome to see these two characters. Can't wait to see what they bring to the table. Really like their costumes. I'm not in love with them. They could have done 10,000 different things to make it look cooler, but overall, just from afar, just looking at them, just glancing at them, looks pretty badass. But in the comments below, let me know what you personally think about this new image. What do you think about Hawkman's costume, Hawkgirl's costume? Do you think it's awesome or badass? What are things that you would have liked it to look a little bit better, or would have made it look a little bit better? Let me know your personal thoughts on how they're going to be integrated in the Arrow and Flash verse, and how they're going to be transmitted into Legends Tomorrow. Let me know your personal speculations on that overall in the comments below. And of course, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jonch12 if you've not done so already. And of course, subscribe to my channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And this has been Jonch12.